Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. This is the July 21st New Garden Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The board has not had any executive sessions since last month's board meeting. Next, we're going to move into the public comment section of the meeting. First, we're just going to have public comment on items that are not on the agenda. After Chris does his presentation on the White Clay Point item, then we'll open that up to questions. I promise you, we'll give everybody a chance. We'll stay here all night if everybody wants to so that everybody gets a chance to give their comments. But right now, we're just going to have comments on anything that's not on the agenda, and then later on, we will get comments on the White Clay Point. So if anybody has any comments on anything that's not agenda item, oh, right here, yeah.
Okay. So my name is Patrick O'Neill. I live with my wife, Karen Bonificino, at 285 New Garden Road. We have the new school being built in our backyard. We look out a window at it. This is the second year of water problems now from them not doing what they're supposedly doing with grading. I was told that the retention pond, there were problems with the retention pond in this past couple of months. We've exceeded supposedly the retention pond by double the amount of water we were getting. I'm concerned that it's going to be damaging our property. This is the second year of us getting silt everywhere. Our pond is completely brown. It turned green the one day after all the water came down. And I know you guys are out there every day, inspectors. So I'm concerned that what's out there is inadequate. I'd love to see the landscaping plans to see what can be done to slow the water down. We're on the receiving end, and it can't continue the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Prior to this meeting at 6 o'clock, there was a public hearing on the Act 209 Transportation Capital Improvement Plan. We have no recognitions or presentations tonight. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting dated June 16, 2025?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Just to clarify, if anybody has any comment on agenda items other than White Clay Point, you can get up and say it now. If not, then if you want to talk about White Clay Point, then we'll do it after the White Clay Point presentation. I think Chris's presentation will answer a lot of your questions. Next, we have the treasurer's report. Can I get a motion to approve the paid invoices in the amount of $804,894.58 and unpaid invoices in the amount of $702,577.65?
I'll make a motion to approve the invoices in the amounts you cited.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll recuse. There are two bills for my employer. I will not take action on them, and I will give the solicitor a conflict sheet following the meeting.
Thank you, Steve. Next is the public safety report. Both reports are in the materials that are on the internet, on the New Garden Township website. Southern Chester County Regional Police was not able to attend tonight, so they're not going to provide a report. And then Guy will, yep, Guy, do you want to give your presentation? Guy's going to present Avondale Fire Company.
Go ahead. Next. There we go. This screen here shows where the Q2 budget is for second quarter of the year. We are at 388 income for EMS and expenditures are at 312. Fire, we're at 121 income and 145 expenditures. The reason why that is our insurance premiums come matured or come due and we paid that. The next screen, please, Chris. This here's year to date. For the first 6 months, you can see there again, the fire's a little over from what we originally had income. That was due to that the first quarter of the year, we bought battery operated rescue tools. That would come out to $64,000 because our hydraulic tools were breaking. Our power pack went down, so we borrowed one for a while till we got the money, and we've been saving to go to battery operated hydraulic or battery operated rescue tools. So next. Okay, this screen here is showing you that for quarter two, we've had dispatch calls of 504 in New Garden Township, and we actually had transport calls was 341 out of the 504. You go to the next one, Chris. This here's a year end. As you can see, in 2024, we did a total 1,883 EMS calls, and 981 of them were in New Garden Township. Go to the fire screen. This is showing you the year over year for fire. 2025 right now, New Garden Township, we're up to 183 total calls. First quarter, we had 91. Second quarter, we had 92. If you want to go to the next screen. And this is actually showing you the year over year again. There's the 92 calls we had in New Garden in the second quarter. You can see where London, Britain, Franklin. Then if you want to go to the next one. This is the call breakdown, good intent calls, service calls, hazardous conditions could be trees and wires, rescue, emergency medical is accidents, false alarms at 29%, and then actual fires are 14.97. Chris also asked me for next, I guess we're still on for August 18th.
Correct, yes, for
Okay.
the merger update.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, we're still in communication with West Grove to do some kind of a merger. Rob or Dan will be here on the 18th with me. Rob's going to try to make it, but if not, Dan, one of his associates that's worked real close with him, will be here. Just give you a little update where we're at real quick. I don't want to take too much time out with the other stuff. But we have a steering committee that's made up of all the presidents, the chiefs, and all that from both departments. And off of that steering committee, we have appointed what we call subcommittees. The subcommittees are made up of equal parts, both stations. It's governments and bylaws. We're looking at that, how we can combine it. Budget, finance, membership, community engagement, marketing and branding, and operations. That's the 6 subcommittees that's off the steering committee. So, anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer.
Thank you, Guy.
Thank you. Thanks for being patient with me. I was kind of laid up there for a little bit, but.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the monthly department report. Chris, any comments there?
In the interest of time, if it's in the packet item, if there's any questions about the report, otherwise we could go on to the formal new business agenda. But there was nothing really significant to report. It's just mostly a monthly update.
Okay.
I don't know if the board has any questions.
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Okay. And moving on to new business, the first item is the White Clay Point development proposal. I'll turn it over to Chris. Just one plug, if you, after the presentation, if you do want to make comments, there are yellow slips of paper at the back of the room. Please put your name and address on there. And when you come up to the microphone, please introduce yourself with your name and address. I have a couple of slips already.
Check, check. Everybody hear me? All right, thank you. Well, good evening, members of the board, residents, staff. Chris Himes, Township Manager. I'm here to talk about what is considered to be probably a very, I'll call it high-interest topic in township history, especially over the course of the last 30 years. And I figured it would be good to kind of lead off with maybe some updates on some of the context of what happened historically on the property before we turn it over to the Stonewall Capital team. It was almost like a learning adventure for myself, just to understand historically about the property in order to move forward on it as well. So with that, there'll be probably very quick kind of rundown for the proposal and kind of leave it up for what is going to be public comments as it was stated beforehand. So without further ado. So White Clay Point site history, some people probably are more understanding of it, but we do have new residents that have come in the last time that this thing came forward. But if anybody here has lived at least, of course, the kind of their entire life in New Garden, you all remember this as the kaolin composting mushroom facility. That's what it used to look like. Thanks to Chesco Views. You can go back in time with the orthos imagery to kind of find what it looked like. I think this was as of year 2000, I think it was, or 05. I can't remember specifically, but that's what it was. It's essentially a kind of a larger kind of non-impervious area on the site that was used for composting spent mushroom substrate kind of distribution, essentially like a transfer site, if you will. If anybody remembers it differently, please let me know because I'm just pulling this out of all documents that I could find. But with that, of course, over the course of the late 90s going into probably about mid-2006, the property came under acquisition for purchase with a company called PREIT, Pennsylvania Real Estate Investment Trust. And of course, that kind of kicked off the infamous site as we know it as White Clay Point. So what PREIT was, and they still exist today, they still are a viable company, they specialize in essentially large shopping town center types, we'll call them developments, big box retail centers, malls, you name it. They have a significant amount of properties and holdings pretty much all through the Delaware, like Water Gap area from kind of North Jersey, kind of all the way through. And they were prospective going to build a concept here, essentially of a big box retail center that was anchored by some kind of, we'll call them marketable brands or high interest brands, Walmart being the most kind of synonymous one, Kohl's, some other kind of traditional anchor brands as well. And that was going to be pretty much on this part of the contiguous property. And we'll look at kind of what that looked like after, you know, some land development procedures in the township. So with that, that's just explaining mostly just the purchase of it, but what actually happened when it went through terms of a land development process with the township. So with that, in October 2001, that was kind of the first commissioning of the land development process, and it required conditional use because they were proposing big things, and we didn't have that in our zoning to have big things. So you have to request a conditional use to get that completed. Winnie, I'm going to try to dumb this down for myself because that helps me understand it as well. So this was the original concept plan. It was almost a 500,000 square feet of commercial square footage for the property, and about 170 residential units, half of which were age restricted. So if you can imagine this as a process, it came through as an application in 2001. The first kind of public hearing for a conditional use started the next month, and then it went through 14 months and 19 conditional use hearings. That's a lot of conditional use hearings. That finally was a rendered decision from the Township Board of Supervisors at the time in 2003 that essentially said, conditional use approved with 97 conditions. And that was a number that I had to kind of pick my jaw back up because that's a big number. But with that, if those have been involved in the zoning process over the course of the last several months, because you approve it or deny it, doesn't mean that that kind of signifies a completion of it. The developer has the ability to then kind of appeal any decisions. In this case, they condensed in 76 of those conditions, and it went up to the Chester County Court of Common Pleas. So that's kind of zoning process in motion, if you want to think of it that way. So with that, I think that started in May of 2001, May of 2003, They didn't reach a settlement agreement for the Court of Common Pleas until 2007. So it just went through this settlement process for years and years and years, and a lot of unknowns about that, and essentially resulted in this. This was the Court of Common Pleas adjudicated decision for conditional use on that site. Essentially, and Winnie, correct me if I'm wrong, this is essentially a court-ordered approved concept plan, correct? So that's one where really, if you think about it over time, this is kind of still viable today. That's basically a rendered decision from a judge in Chester County. This is what's approved technically for the site. So with that, they went through all of these conditional use hearings and basically got the net commercial reduction, I think, of a couple execution of legal conditions from about just under $500,000 to just over 400,000. So essentially, it didn't really diminish the site concept. It did reduce some of the residential from half. I can't remember if it was the restricted and remaining. And then ultimately, in 2011, there was a slight amendment to it. And essentially what happened was is some of these structures became condominiumized rather than just the big box functions of themselves. I couldn't get really in touch with anybody from PREET to kind of explain why nothing of this ever happened, but based off of anecdotal information, you have the 2008 financial collapse of pretty much the entire property market. So that impacts a commercial real estate holding company pretty significantly. Big box retail that was seen as an attractive kind of bring people into the township kind of function was more of a wave of, we'll call them land development decision-making back in the early 2000s. Times change, e-commerce, kind of those macroeconomic things kind of change about what happens. And so essentially the plan kind of went belly up. It just never really put into motion because they weren't going to build it. That's a big investment for what would likely be a non-successful commercial retail site. Time changed the concept here. So moving forward, and this is as of about 6 years ago, there was essentially a stay period from even further to the right of that until finally there was an approach to go into an agreement to purchase the property between its current owner, which is JP Morgan Chase, who owns the PREET titling component of this site. So they don't own PREET, they own the PREET holding here for the property in New Garden Township. And so with that, they're essentially the owners of the property. But it's still titled to PREET. So essentially that keeps the settlement agreement kind of intact, if you want to think of it like that. And there was a public meeting. Thank you to the Chester, was it the county press? A lot of these articles was used for that. And essentially this was the updated concept plan for the site. This was in December of 2019. If you're having reminiscent kind of understandings about this, Richard, let me know. But with that, you can see that the commercial plan was kind of scoped down. Once again, concept over time for potential commercial in the site is based off of more modern market realities. We're a non-dense area and it's just done differently than what had been proposed to be back in the late 90s, early 2000s. As well as the township had kind of matured into what it was, and maybe it wasn't as much speculative development. It was just, this is just based off of the current rooftop conditions in the area. And this was the proposed plan. Funny so, we went through about 6 months worth of youth athletic facility type discussions here, and that was actually proposed for the site back in 2019. So nothing's really new, I guess. With that, this plan never really came into fruition. It never went into motion too. I imagine initially that was because they did all this stuff in 2019 and then something called COVID-19 happens and that kind of slows down a lot of momentum for land development projects. That's not New Garden, obviously that was globally. But with that, the only things that kind of came forward, and there's kind of some anecdotes about kind of what transpired, but essentially there was essentially a stay period of about a year or so until eventually this plan of a by right concept 100% townhouse plan came forward for preliminary review and approval in the mid-2021 timeframe. So that's, again, another 14 months of nothing happening, and then it comes forward, and it's completely different than what was kind of talked about at the time. And then this was essentially the last decision-making function for the township, because since this plan was provided for review, and it was in May to June or July of 2021, it's just been subject to extension requests. It never really went beyond that preliminary review. So it never was even sought after for final land development review for the property. There were sketch concept plans that were kind of brought forward for public, reviews or for these concept discussions. And you can see even with those updates, the residential unit count kind of still went up and then the commercial count kind of still went down. So it's kind of been that like inverse plan, if you will, from the original concept plan. And that's kind of where we are at today. Now with that, my understanding is there's a lot of reasons for why the site has a lot of issues about how it's not in some sort of active land development. The biggest one is the township kind of factored into this. We sold the sewer system, so we no longer control our destiny for adding sewer capacity in the township. It's a function of you have to have a shared kind of collaborative function with Aqua PA, they own the system. If it's one where you need to work with them to improve the site, they only have decision-making authority over the assets that they own inside New Garden, or you have to partner regionally with a potential borough that has a stream discharge type function at Kennett Square and at Avondale. But with that, it's an extraordinary expense to build out the capacity needed, let's say with the only kind of viable source that we have, which is the East End plant, at an extraordinary increased cost. So that's a big issue. You have to figure that equation out. That's a math problem to solve. The land acquisition, you're basically trying to buy something from a bank. Banks aren't friendly. So they are going to be one where they're not going to really budge on a number until you meet it. So that just adds to the acquisition expense, which adds to the overall site cost. So now you have to add that to that. Commercial viability. If those who have participated in the zoning conversations, you can understand that the existing unified development district is one where it's based off a gross tract area. If you're going to do a mixed development, that means you have to have a certain percentage upper echelon of residential, meaning the remaining part of it has to be kind of open space and commercial. Over a 200-acre property, that remaining percentage of commercial, that's still a lot of commercial. So if you're having to invest a bunch of money into some of this stuff, commercial for development isn't necessarily like a super cost friendly element to it. Normally you lose money on building commercial and you make it back with the residential. That's just the kind of developer concept there. So with that, you have a large tract area that just factors into the math. It's more math you have to solve for. And then last but not least, this is just the hard baked in cost. You're gonna have to fix stormwater stuff and you're gonna have to fix transportation stuff. That's just already an assumed element of the site. So when you stack all these elements up, it's who can basically absorb that cost as a function of we can basically move this project forward because we have different kind of ways of performing, like, you know, kind of economies of scale, if you will. So with that, why is the township involved with this? Well, it's been identified in a lot of our historical planning guidelines and comp plan guidelines of it as a priority for the township. It's in our own guidelines. It's here. It's in the comp plan. So with that, we talk about what it can mean in terms of its ability to structure in some additive future development in the township's growth corridors, which Route 41 is the primary artery. The biggest thing about the comp plans for residential feedback was enhancing Route 41. This is the end node of it. This is probably one of the biggest frontages of Route 41 that we have in the entire township. So it's kind of a catalyst, if you will, for enhancements. But you have to figure out where to start. So engaging Aqua. What is Aqua? What are their interests? Yes, you have to have a conversation with them. As much as people might not like them very much, they're there and they're not going away. If we can have involvement from the township, what is an incentive for us? Well, we're trying to improve recreation opportunities that we couldn't necessarily execute in New Garden Hills because that was 100% attached to the township's cost, but we want to have something available for youth recreation functions in there. That's a value function for the township. Plus, it actually performs well for our township's amusement tax. So it's a smaller kind of commercial footprint that produces more on top of it. And then trying to find somebody. How do you get someone's attention? Just because you want something to happen doesn't mean you're going to immediately pick up a phone and get a successful call on day one. And also, too, from a national perspective, maybe with some of the regional people that have been historically involved couldn't necessarily kind of drive it forward. Maybe you just need more horsepower behind it. So with that, that's how we kind of came into contact with Stonewall Capital for tonight's meeting, and essentially centered around a conversation about doing exploration about what it means to build a youth athletic facility, which has been part of the public conversation for the last several months, because normally those are financed with public financing. Doing some exploration through the Chester County Economic Development Council and their Public Financing Council, it's one where we can't afford that type of thing because it's a big number and the township just doesn't have the gravity of underwriting capacity to commission the amount of debt to serve the bond to pay off the loan that you would have to do to build that. So we have to seek partners for that. So it was a lot of discovery over the course of the last several months, if you will. And that's where I'm going to turn this over because we want to get more of the concept stuff, but we can provide comments. And after you're done, I'm going to pick back up to kind of maybe explain a little bit more context about the youth facility function, and then we'll lead it up for questions. So without further ado, this is Ray Jackson, the, what do we call it, the president, CEO, what are your title?
Managing member.
Managing member of Stonewall Capital. So thank you, Ray. Yeah. It should be queued up. You're ready for you to go.
Okay, how do I?
Just advance, just press forward.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Ray Jackson. I'm the managing partner of Stonewall Capital. We are a raw land and raw development firm based out of Timonium, Maryland. Here, let me just. We've been in business over 25 years. We are primarily a mixed-use company, meaning we do both residential as well as commercial and retail. We've and very recently, also, as Chris had mentioned, we participated in a sports complex in Elkton, Maryland, and that was the connection that we got with New Garden Township initially. So some similar type projects that we've been working on. One again is down in Elkton, Maryland. It's called Southfields, 750 acres. It's over 1,000 residential units. It's got a 55-acre sports complex attached to it. We've got 3 million square feet of industrial. It's a live, work, play type of a development. That project has been ongoing for the last 3 years. We've completed a infrastructure for the city or the town of Elkton. I should say we built a 600,000 gallon water tower. We put in sewer pump stations. We put in a boulevard, did all the state highway work, so on and so forth. So that is, again, truly a mixed use development. Another similar type project is called One Westport. That's in Baltimore City. Again, it's about 1,000 residential units. It's waterfront. Similar to this project, we're doing an integration to a waterfront park down there. It's a public-private partnership that we're doing with Baltimore City Rec and Park and a nonprofit. We're actually deeding over to Baltimore City Rec and Park 14 acres of waterfront. So it's a collaborative effort, and I think that's one of the things that kind of attracted Chris to our company. Just to show you the geographic region that we cover, we're also down in Ocala, Florida, where we're developing 255 acres down there. That's about 1,200 residential units and about 75 acres of retail and commercial. So that'll give you an idea of kind of the work that we do. When we were first introduced to the township, primarily Chris and staff, we talked, and I wanted to know what their vision was. What did you all want to see here? And I heard some common themes. I heard that there needed to be integration to the park. I heard that there were traffic concerns in the community. I heard that there was some requests for density and for attainable housing. So we'll talk about that in a little while. They wanted some diversification of product type. They wanted different type of housing. I heard that. We talked about the retail component. We talked about the need for commercial. And I think equally important to all of this was the integration of the potential sports complex. So that's how we were marrying up the process. And there were some other areas of concern that I heard. We brought our team up here. We've had multiple conversations with staff to try to identify the specific wants and needs of the community. Here's the concept plan. I'll talk very briefly about this. This is a black and white. There's a color one here that might be a little easier to read. One of the things that I neglected to mention is that we are the contract purchaser of the ground. So we were brought in by JP Morgan. We were introduced to New Garden Township initially through Mesero, which is a bond company that facilitated the sports complex for us in Elkton. And then we were also introduced to JP Morgan. So we developed a relationship with JP Morgan. What I neglected to say is we also recently entered into an agreement to purchase an additional 35 acres that's right down in here off of Reynolds Road. So it's a total of 220 acres, and I should have said that up front. So the property is we're laying it out consists of, again, 220 acres. This is north is straight up. This is 41 right here. And what we've laid out is approximately 670 residential units, a combination of townhouses, attainable stackable units, which this is all for sale fee simple. This is all home ownership.
We've got attainable units in a condo product. I said for sale fee simple. It's actually that would be a condo product. And then we have single family detached, and we have a couple different varieties of the single family detached. I'm going to show you, here's the unit count. So we've got proposed 263 units of single family detached, 90 20-foot townhouses, 224-foot townhouses, and then 112 of what we're calling the attainable type product. Again, we wanted to have a diversification of product types. We wanted to have different types of families here. These are some sample elevations. I'm just going to run through these real quick. One of the things I also need to say to you is we do not have a definitive builder as of yet. One of the things that I've been representing to the staff is that it will be a national builder. Chris had mentioned there's going to be some horsepower needed to get this job done. So there will be some large companies in here working with us. We call them strategic partners. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in one of the other items that we've been talking about, and I haven't really hit on enough yet, is the commercial side of this. So there has been speculation for years and years that there was going to be a Wawa. We're talking to gas and convenience stores. That conversation is ongoing. We are a horizontal developer, which means we do all the dirt work. We don't do any vertical construction. So our strategic partners will be the vertical builders. That will, again, include national builders on the home side, but also on the commercial side, we will be bringing in a large strategic partner to facilitate the commercial part of it. We're envisioning a smaller type of a grocery store, not the one that was previously proposed, probably about a 20 or 30,000 square foot store. We're proposing 4 or 5 individual pad sites, which could be fast or quick service restaurants, those type of services, service-oriented retail. The community recreation and the sports complex is a huge component of this. And that's how I was originally introduced to Chris. And it's really important to spend some time here. The sports complex that we're building in Elkton, Maryland, again, it's a public-private partnership. The state of Maryland is participating with us through MEDCO, which is Maryland Economic Development Corporation. They sold municipal bonds to fund this project. It's $56 million, the project in Elkton. When we first started talking to Chris, I said to Chris, how are you going to pay for this? How's that process going to move forward? And I know that you all have been having internal conversations here about that. We've done it. We've participated in it. We have experience in it. And I volunteered to help Chris through that process. The park integration, again, was a big concern. So New Garden Hills is the park that you all had purchased. There's some grade issues with regards to the White Clay Point property and the New Garden Hills property. And we've already started to engineer connections to that and figured out how to integrate into that. There's multiple access points that we're looking at. And again, what we've talked about with Chris and with staff is to work together in a collaborative effort to make it happen. The big elephant in the room, and Chris mentioned it briefly, is the issue with the sewer. That's been the biggest impediment to this development. I think he was somewhat euphemistic when he said it could cost $20 million. It could be north of that. But I will tell you that we've engaged local engineering firms. We've engaged a local sewer expert. I've got guys on our staff that are civil engineers, and we're vetting this right now, and we're figuring out a solution. We've already met with Avondale Borough. Chris was kind enough to facilitate that. We will be meeting with Kennett. We're going to find a mutually beneficial solution to the sewer issue, but it's an issue. The traffic and roadway improvements, again, we've got Chester Valley Engineer working with us. We I read the previous concerns of the community. Traffic is always a concern. We've engaged a traffic engineer already. I will tell you that we will be diligent in the efforts here, and we will be engaged with staff here internally and the township's third-party engineer. We're going to make it better. I'll tell you that right now. So we're cognizant of the issues. And I think that you can plan and you can develop these properly, and that's what we're going to do. These are some of the contributions that we will be making to this project, and this is real money. These are what we've proffered. This is what's on the table. The connection to the park, for instance. I talked about the grade problems. Could be upwards of $1 million. We are going to be dedicating or deeding over to the township. We've proposed the barn that's on the other side of 41 and probably 2 or 3 acres of ground over there. The idea is to create like a farmer's market type of scenario. One of the conversations that I had with Chris is he said it might be hard for the township to do the renovations of the barn, and we will work with the township on that. The Rowan House is a historic house. It's actually on the property. It's right on Sunnydale Road. You probably haven't seen it recently because it's overgrown. We've also committed to renovate and restore that. I think the biggest part of our proffer here to the township is we're not trying to sell you ground for the sports complex. We're going to deed the ground over to you, and we're going to talk more about that today. So that's one of the reasons I think we've made a connection is that we're all in this together, and we all know we've got to work together to find some common solutions here. So one of the things that I've proffered is to donate the land for the sports complex. Full transparency, I will get a tax deduction for that. So it is still mutually beneficial, but the sewer improvements, I've committed at least $12 million to the sewer improvements. So if it's a $20 million problem, more than half of it's coming from us. So you can see our financial commitment. And then the road improvements, we're estimating they could be upwards of $5 million. So that would probably include 2 signalized intersections along 41. So that process is again in session. So our whole staff is here tonight. We're here to answer questions. We want this to be an open dialogue. I've got business cards. I'll make sure anybody that wants to talk to me personally can get a direct communication. So.
Thank you. I think I can handle it from here. Just to quickly go back, because I want to make sure that's clarified. This is all at no cost to the township. So there's no planned public financing on the table at all for this right now. So that's why it was kind of a huge component of it, because right now we don't want to have the value add of additive revenues coming into the township just for what's that mean, and then immediately have to turn that into a payment that we are obligated to pay over time. So it's not to over leverage our position just for the sake of making something happen. So just want to clarify that for as well. And then also it's one where the sewer improvement, kind of what it is, but also to have, in addition to the site's needs, additive capacity for beyond. So the project doesn't basically absorb all the remaining capacity for what little we currently have today. And that kind of sets us up strategically for the future as a township to continue towards our objectives laid out in our comp plan, the zoning stuff, just kind of continue to have runway to get that stuff completed. So without any other clarifications there, we can go into just in terms of, and everybody that was involved, I think it was an April meeting, it was essentially the Sports Facility Advisory Company pro forma report about what it means. Essentially, it's one where you have kind of 2 proposed models. It was a local model that's more of like, think of it like a 90K box for youth athletic programming, training academies, fitness kind of programming. Essentially, it's just like a feature function for just doing stuff out of as a youth function. There's a larger one. It's more of a tourism type model. That's one where you're just talking about a bigger facility, but there's in terms of just scaling and cost, one is much more than the other. So the likelihood, it depends on kind of what that private interest element is. But in terms of what we're committing to basically having the deed performed over to the township and then immediately going into essentially marketing of the site for potential full private acquisition of the property for development. Because the good news is by having the youth facility pro forma developed by Sports Facilities Advisory, which is the #1 national youth kind of programming feasibility company out there, is it shows it as a profitable venture. You just have to build it. So the good news is there are groups out there that would build it at cost because they get to operate it and proceed to get those revenues back in return. So that's a good card in front of it that gets built, but we don't have an ownership stake in terms of having to fund it ourselves. So with that also, because remember when we had to approve this, there's feature functions of this type of facility that do justify the dictating use of a stadium / and/or arena use, because you can have seating chart kind of elements to that. And anything defined in the Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Code of above, what is it, like 1,000 seats, by definition is an arena. So that's part of that clunky conversation of, no, it's not going to be some sort of, Philadelphia 76ers arena. It's an arena-based function for having event seating for these types of youth programming functionalities. So with that, we also attach conditions to it, because this wasn't even defined in our current zoning. And that's another one too. This is all under the context of the existing Unified Development District zoning, not the future zoning. So we're not running this up against the new proposed zoning. It's the current one. So with that, we updated it, and then essentially the township, because it's being deeded over, now controls the destiny here. We control the outcome. And I think that was one where it was cautions, concerns that anybody can just come in and build whatever they want. No, they can't, because we get to dictate that as a township. We have a say, and that's a big part of it. And these were some of the conditions on there. So in terms of just what it could potentially be at the upper echelon, you kind of narrow that down and restrict it back there. And it's a conditional use. So it's one where you even have the ability to attach conditions on it. So project timeline, we're at the infancy right now, so it's really tough to project kind of this thing all the way through the process, but at least in terms of the next few months, the goal is essentially to have it started, because we did receive the land development application in advance of the July Public Planning Commission. So that's happening on Wednesday night here for those that want to attend. And then the goal is essentially to have that kind of standard iterative rollover between the PC and the board, at least for the next several months. And it's basically kind of projected as a, you can run or you can kind of walk or whatever it is, but it's just based off of a plan being conditioned for approval based off of just it's kind of met all those engineer reviews. It's been reviewed by the Planning Commission, and it's been part of a application for submission for final land development at a future date, whenever that is. But with that, remember that this isn't necessarily just on its own as an independent land development application. You also have to amend the existing settlement agreement. So it's like kind of like a bifurcated process, if you will. So it's one where we wanted to make sure as a township that this wasn't like a kind of a quick turnaround of hey, let's just amend the settlement plan and get it going, and it's 100% design and we're done. Our request to the development team was it has to go through full land development review. It's part of a public transparency initiative. We wanted to make sure this was kind of fully out there and everybody had a chance to participate. So that's what it's going to be. Tonight is just step one of a multi-month process. You're going to hear more and more about this as it goes on, subject to iterations. What the final state is yet to be defined. But this is the jumping off point too. So it's a very kind of almost like a milestone, if you will. And we'll open it up for questions. So I don't know if you wanted to kind of quickly have comment or you want to open up immediately to the public. That's whatever you prefer.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Let's start with the board. Any questions from the board for Ray or for Chris?
Ray, can you elaborate a little bit on the stormwater aspect of this site? There have been numerous problems. There's been numerous studies, and I know in speaking with Chris, you had mentioned engaging with a professional consultant, possibly Greenvest.
Yeah, I'm Neil Kamens with Chester Valley Engineers. We've worked on actually all three of these plans. So we've come up with multiple versions of the stormwater. They're all similar. The regulations keep getting tighter. The plan we submitted now sets aside the area to comply with the current stormwater regulations. We would limit peak flows, volumes. We would treat all the water for water quality. I think the biggest improvement is not even necessarily what you normally see on a typical site, but that the condition of this site today is not very good. All the runoff frequently is going to contain sediment, things that we don't want in the stormwater. We don't want to get down to Somerset Lake. We don't want just running off into the storm drains, anything. So I'm not going to tell you development doesn't create more impervious. We're going to do that, but there's already impervious on the site. There are a bunch of foundations. There's a bunch of compacted material. There's a bunch of sparsely vegetated things. And with the development plan, there'll be, you know, finished development, buildings, houses, streets, but we're going to have a drainage system with those. We'll then drain into stormwater management systems. We'll filter for water quality. We'll meet the township's requirements for peak flow and for peak rate. We'll also go through the NPDES process, which just got tougher again this March. And so, I mean, I think this is one of those not common jobs where there will be less stormwater runoff from the actual current conditions when we're done, because the assumptions we have to make in our stormwater calculations are that this is a undeveloped meadow. And it's clearly not an undeveloped meadow today. So we're getting more runoff than our condition we have to design the pre-stuff for. So I do think that if any of these plans were actually built, and hopefully the current one will be, we will have a system design, the township engineer will review it, DEP will review it, the conservation district will review it, and we'll end up actually having cleaner water leaving the site and less of it than we do today.
Not necessarily on the stormwater management side, but we've also obviously heard the concerns regarding the stream quality down in the park as well as on our property. So we have relationships with a lot of environmental consultant groups. We've brought in one that we're currently doing a $50 million artificial wetland project down at the Westport project that we talked about earlier. They've already come and started doing survey work for all of the streams down in the park section, as well as the tributaries, which lead up into our property. There really aren't that many streams on our property. It's basically just the headwaters of some of the streams that run through the park. But given that we're building a lot of the integration into the park with the road networks, that'll also require stormwater management. And so we just went ahead and started doing all the survey work. Typically, a lot of that work is very expensive. Greenvest is excellent at trying to find public money to pay for it, not from the township, but more from the state and federal side, which is one of the reasons why we like to use them. But yeah, they've already gone and mapped, I would guess, probably at least 500 to 600 yards of the stream network. And as things get a little further in the process, you know, we've committed to the township that will aid in the process of identifying some really easy fixes on the erosion beds on the side of the stream.
Thank you. I'll leave it at that.
I just wanted to ask Ray if you could speak to the HOA you might be putting in place. I appreciate that you mentioned that all these properties are going to be owner occupied. A lot of concerns are about tenants and that sort of thing. So in addition, I don't know if you mentioned the sidewalks you're planning on doing, anything that kind of speaks to that sort of neighborhood feel that'll encourage that?
Yep, absolutely.
As the team. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, I was gonna say, just for the team that's gonna be answering probably the most of the questions, if you want to come up here just to speak out of this microphone, and we'll leave that for like public comment from the residents here. So just not like a clunky interface here.
I was just asking him about, to speak to the HOA that would be put in place to encourage people to maintain the property. He already said that, you know, these are going to be owner occupied, so there won't be tenancy issues. Residents will have a kind of pride of ownership, and he's going to be doing, correct, yes. Yeah, and the sidewalks he's going to put in to encourage a sort of neighborhood feel and that sort of walkability that we don't have in Somerset Lake. Sure.
Sir, if you can come up to the dais, if you're going to come in and make public comment too, and we just want to make sure that you have your name and address for the public record.
Yeah, Mario D'Angelo, I'm on the board of directors at Somerset, and I'm the newly assigned liaison with the township. It's a new trend for the last couple of years in developments like this, where you say you're building them as private homes, but a large part of these end up being turned into rental properties and Section 8 housing. Are there restrictions against that in this?
So we will have an HOA. The HOA will be originally managed by,
HOA doesn't affect that. It's the regulations you put in and when you're selling them, when you're developing it.
Yeah, so we've obviously managed probably between us 60 HOAs. We're well aware of the process. You have a declaration, you have bylaws, you have rules and regs. So the three main steps of every HOA. If you put it into the bylaws, it has a certain amount of votes that can be used to override it.
But
Same
the
thing
HOA
with
bylaws
declaration.
don't take effect until there are private owners in there. Prior to that, you can have any speculators you want come in by 10, 15, 20, 30 units.
So it is possible to put in restrictions on rentals in HOAs.
Does the
Uh,
township have restrictions against that?
No.
Just make sure you say that in the mic.
You can't have restrictions against Section 8 because the federal would become
Are
involved.
you talking about vouchers, sir?
I'm sorry?
When you say Section 8, that's a very loaded term, and most people don't understand what it actually means. Are you talking about vouchers?
Well, no, I'm just talking about making sure that this doesn't become, I've had property I owned in Georgia and property close to it. That's what happened to it. They came in, the builder changed over, sold it to a firm in California who turned it all into rental housing. So I've seen it happen in the past.
So this is what I can tell you, is if the township expresses a will for us to put in the HOA docs, a restriction on the number of rentals, then that's certainly something we're willing to talk with them about. We've done it in other jurisdictions. I can tell you it's difficult for a couple reasons. One, once we lose control of the HOA, the people are the ones who control the HOA. If they get a quorum and they choose to vote that change their rules, they will have the ability to do that regardless of what our role is in that. I would say another thing is that a lot of your residents that move in are probably not going to like the fact that they've lost the ability to rent out their home if they find themselves in a position where they need to do that.
No, I didn't say lose the ability to rent. I'm
Okay.
saying the whole area being turned into that, because I've seen that happen, and that's why I'm
So
asking.
there's ways that that can be dealt with. You can have percentage maximums on the amount that can be rented out. I can tell you in practice, that's pretty much never works. What are you going to tell the 21st percentile person that they can't rent their unit when 20% of the people are? But I hear your concern, and if you can come to us with a reasonable proposal, we'll be the first ones to listen to it.
My next question is this an all-in-one or are portions of this being considered? For instance, is the sports facility 100% part of this, or is it a separate part?
well, they'll be separately deeded parcels. So there'll be a commercial and a retail section of it, and there'll be a residential section. And then the sports complex will be separately deeded parcel.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with the commercial part. I spoke with Mr. Himes about this about 6 months ago, and I don't really have a problem with that. I'm not a big fan of the sports complex portion. I will tell you that. The other part of that is that, and I've had this discussion with the township before, when Home Depot was going to come in. You're talking about improvements on roads. The one that needs it the most, you haven't said a word about. Reynolds Road will not take that traffic. What that means is that after you go in there, you put that in, you have those trucks and so forth coming in that back way. We, the citizens in New Garden Township, will end up having to pay to fix Reynolds Road. I requested it 15, whatever the heck years ago it was, and I'm going to request it again, that part of this, if the township approves it, it be that Reynolds Road be brought up to current state specifications before they allow any development with an access to Reynolds Road. Reynolds Road needs a lot of work.
I would also say this to you, that one of the things that we can do is we can restrict traffic, any type of construction traffic off of Reynolds Road. So that's something we'll discuss with staff and If it's a condition, then we will abide by it.
Well, why is
We
it
do it
that
now.
when you're talking about doing work on Sunnydale and so forth, you're not willing to talk about rentals?
We're willing to talk about everything.
Rentals is the one that concerns me as a resident of the township because the cost that could be involved to us.
That will absolutely be part of our traffic study. And if that's a concern of the community, then we're going to talk to staff about that.
Something else that, to me anyway, wasn't clear, and that was the sewer part of it. Are you paying for that, or is Aqua doing it?
So we have engaged Aqua in conversations. Aqua has stated to me personally that they have an obligation to provide sewer service to the residents of New Garden Township. I do not believe Aqua will make a capital improvement to do that. That's my personal belief. That means we are going to have to make that capital contribution. That's what we delineated in that slide, that $12 million number.
Well, I didn't see, I saw that it was mentioned. I didn't see that you were doing it under the way Pennsylvania allows utilities to pass on costs. If Aqua provides that upgrade and all that infrastructure, that cost will be passed on to all the residents within the township who are on Aqua. Oh, yeah, I just went through this with them on other things.
We're proposing making the capital contribution. That's what we're proposing.
So you are proposing to do it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, we're value engineering it right now. So we've been told it was $20 million. We're working internally right now to try to be more efficient. And that's why we're looking at Avondale, and that's why we're looking at Kennett, to be candid with you.
Just to kind of make sure that we're not going on and on and on here too, but to clarify that one last topic, Aqua does not charge tapping fees. So they essentially kind of what the township used to do, which is pass on cost based off of the shoulders of the developer. So developer contributions pay for the system. Aqua's not paying for any of that.
That's what I wanted
And
to
so none
find
of that
out.
cost can be speculatively passed through.
Normally does. It didn't seem that way the way it was presented.
And that's not the case. That's it's something of concern, but it's not an issue here. And plus, if they do at some point in the future come by with what they normally do, which is a rate proposal increase on base rates, that's done at a puck level. That's a huge kind of hearing type functions, everything, but it wouldn't be whittled down to the impact of a developer building out a system here locally. But that's one where hopefully the understanding is the cost is actually to the developer, not to Aqua Pennsylvania. They own and operate existing stuff. They don't expand and build facilities for speculative new developments.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Mr. D'Angelo, we're going to allow other people to have a comment.
I
So
was
you've
just
had,
going to say
you've
that.
had your time. We want to give some other people an opportunity, okay? So if you're interested in making public comment on the White Clay Point, please fill out a yellow slip. There's a 3-minute time limit, as it says in the agenda. We've gone past 3 minutes here. Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. I have 2 names here that would like to speak. Don Sandusky and Patrick O'Neill, if anybody else would like to speak. Fill out the yellow sheet, and then after you speak, please bring it up to me and I'll retain it, and your name will go in the minutes. So please look for your name in the minutes next month. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Patrick.
Hello, my name is Don Sandusky. I'm the chair of the Somerset Lake Committee. In all deference to my colleague, the head of the board of directors, I've volunteered to come and speak on behalf of the committee. I have no real power. Okay. But I have a few comments, and then I'd like to offer to enter into the record the charter for the Somerset Lake Committee. Okay?
What is the point of that?
The point of that is to explain in specific detail what our objectives are for the health and well-being of the lake.
This is not a hearing, sir. This is just a regular meeting. This is not a hearing on this project. So there isn't a record except minutes, which will reflect.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's fine. You can do it.
Can I still make my statement?
You're fine.
Okay.
But I just was trying to
Okay,
understand.
that's fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry for not understanding the procedures. I'm new at this. Please bear with me. I welcome the team here and I admire you for what you're doing. And I'd love to have a sports complex here. I'd love it. Okay. So I don't have an axe to grind at all. I'm merely advocating in my role as the chair of the Lake Committee chairman. That's all I'm doing. Okay. I would like to caution my colleagues. Remember the Donald Rumsfeld unknown unknowns thing? I want to put in perspective that the project you're working on building actually sits at about 300 feet of elevation ahead of a dam wall. Okay? It's not just a lake, it's a dam that forms the entire buffer for an entire watershed downstream. It is so important. And on Wednesday last week, we had 3 straight days of torrential rain, which saturated the permeable area that is the subject of this proposal. After 2 days, it was fine, but on the 3rd day, 4 inches of rain. I cannot explain to you people how amazed I was at how the spillway, an engineering marvel, handled the flow of water coming through there. And I want to draw you, the Board of Supervisors' attention to a very simple concept. The spillway worked as designed. It's brilliant. But the water was this far away from breaching the spillway and flowing over the road. And if that had happened for more than a half an hour, and bye-bye lake, white clay, swamped. God only knows what's going to happen. And I'm sorry for being dramatic, but I feel a certain passion about how important this is, okay? Over the last 20 years, our community has been paying to dredge the sediment from the lake at no small expense. Furthermore, we've been applying algicides to take care of the nutrients that have flowed downhill. You guys did a great job in helping us resolve a big problem in that. There's still problems, okay? We spend about 35 grand a year just on algicides. And we hate it. We hate doing it, okay? Because we don't want to send algicides downstream in a white clay. Those are our neighbors in Delaware that drink that stuff. So what I'm trying to offer to the team here is, please let us help you develop this plan. We want to help you. I'm a recovering PhD engineer. I've been a recovering entrepreneur for 20 years. I get it, right? And I'm not the smartest guy in the group, but we got some really smart people that have been looking at this for 20 years. Let us help you. Please enlist us to participate in your plan. We really want to do it, okay? If this goes forward, all we want is to achieve the charter of the goal of the lake. And frankly, it's a fairly modest goal. We want it to be able to be a habitat for wildlife and migratory species and endemic species, and we want it to stay. But it's filled halfway up with sediment. And our little community, and I know we're only 10% of New Garden Township, and we may pay 10 to 15% of the taxes. We're small players here. But hey, we've demonstrated to the Board of Supervisors our willingness to take it on ourselves and do it ourselves all these years. We really have. We've tried. And we need some help. Because if you put a sewer system in that runs down the road to the sewer system on the other end of it, I only have 3 minutes and I think I'm at 6. I'm at 9. I will finish but can we follow up later? Let's just follow up later. It's perfectly fine.
Thank you, Don. I'll take your materials when you're done.
I'm happy to be done now. I think
Great.
I made my point.
Great, that'd be great. Again, I'll ask
you.
anybody who makes,
Thank you.
yeah, that's good. Okay. Thank you, Don. Again, if anybody has public comment, please come up to the microphone. We have William Michael from 8 Wilkinson Drive.
Good evening, everybody. My name is William Michael, and I just had a couple questions on, one was the arena that's going to be built. It's going to be privately deeded over. It's going to be deeded over, and then it's going to be privately run. Is that accurate? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay.
The property will be deeded over.
Okay, and then is there any rules on how it's shared or how the expenses of that are going to be? Are there any rules on how it's going to be shared with other communities? Can Kennett Square use it? Obviously, Garden use it, other communities use it. Can that be written in there? Just a thought from that standpoint.
I would defer to Chris on that.
And just to clarify, is this for the proposed spec community center function for
The-
the renovation of Rowan House?
No, the youth arena.
The youth facility and the actual
Yes.
sports park? Yeah, that's an open for business concept for the township. The goal is to actually bring in outside patronage from just a local region to it. So it'll
Okay.
be for everybody. And then it's also one where obviously all of the public facilities in the park and all the other activation points, all of this is for not like the HOA only kind of use. This is overall just open season.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you've kind of modeled some other things, but when this is done, let's say it goes through, you're finished your part of development, right? Now you're running your piece, we're running our piece. Have you looked at the model of finances versus the expense of running those
Yeah.
infrastructure?
We're not, are you talking about just like the development or the youth facility? I just want to make sure that's clear.
No, at the whole project from a holistic view.
In terms of just cost for expenditures of services to support it over time?
Is it,
Yes,
is
that's
it a
part
net
of a-
positive? Is it, a wash?
So overall, it's going to be just based off the function of the township has the ability to absorb scalability of service costs that don't necessarily have a direct linear relationship with residential population increases. We have a regional police force. We have a regional a pending regional fire department function and EMS function. And in terms of servicing the streets, you're talking about operationally, plowing operations. It's not one where we're adding 100 linear miles of roadway. It's essentially an internal roadway there, and it's already on the routes. So it's going to be nominal increases that are going to be outpaced by the additive revenues and
So
tax.
you're seeing it as a positive.
Yeah, but I want to basically make sure that the impact study that's being performed right now will show kind of what that value add is as well. Because that's one where that'll tell you kind of the exact math you want. I don't want to make any promises right now.
That's fine. I just want to make sure we're looking at that. And if we
Yep.
can see that model in the future, it might
Correct.
be a very, very good data point to look at.
Yes.
And also a sale point.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we have Jim Powers, 240 Crescent Road.
Good evening. I appreciate your work as far as putting this all together, but I got a couple of questions. First off, you talk about Aqua and the community, the contribution you'll be making to Aqua to build out. Is that also to build out capacity of their sewer processing, or is it just for the pipes going through that area?
So there's multiple proposals right now that Aqua has shared with us, and conversely, we've shared with Aqua. All of those add additional capacity, whether it be at Avondale or at Kennett. That's how I would answer that. But there's multiple different reiterations of what the plan potentially could look like. There's different directions the sewer could go.
So as a resident of Harrogate North, when our sewer system was sold, it went to Aqua, and we all took it through our wallets as far as the amount of increase in their fees, number one. Secondly, we talk about the youth facility. Is that going to be a standalone operating system? And what about the cost and the operating? Is that going to be generating its own income, or will the township be on the hook for anything that doesn't come up as far as turning a profit or even covering its costs?
Yeah, so right now it's spec'd to be a private investment function. So the township will have no committed stake of owning and operating that function, that facility. It'll be all with private interest coming in to do it. What we get out of it essentially is if it has the type of event programming for whatever it be in terms of its eligibility as an amusement function, which right now, like the golf driving range is an amusement tax function for the township. The polo fields is an amusement tax function. So if it meets that criteria, any event use or any kind of like whatever programming is run out of it, that's the tax revenue. In terms of the operating revenues, that goes to the private owner for the group. So we don't have potential future risk for capital replacements and staff kind of stuff. Like all of that is done on the private side.
I'm worried about the operating costs and
Yeah.
how much we would have to.
You don't
come
have to
up
worry
with.
about it because it's not going to be on the township's hook. That was a big part of it because we don't want to overcommit ourselves. We're small enough as it is. We have a lot enough as it is, excuse me. We don't need more.
I saw a number of things on the timeline, but I didn't see the key date that many of us are probably worried about. When does construction start?
Realistically, it'd be 2 years from now. It's probably 18 months to start the sewer. There's a lot of engineering that has to go, background engineering. I think realistically 18 months to 2 years before a shovel would go in the ground.
And when would the road expansion?
That would be determined by PennDOT and the traffic study. I think that probably happens simultaneous with the vertical construction. It'll be a condition that it's put upon us.
Because I've lived in Chester County long enough to remember when there was a 141 bypass, and I'm still looking for it, okay? As a matter of fact, the bypass route has disappeared, okay? It's been consumed by either houses or other development. So adding a lane in either direction doesn't cut it.
I don't know what to say to you. I mean, we've engaged a traffic engineer. I haven't even gotten the reports back yet. So we just came up with this plan. We're going through the process now. What I would envision seeing happen is there would definitely be XL and decel lanes on both sides of the road. There'll be signalized intersections. It'll be thought out. I'm sure there'll be additional improvements off-site as well. I just don't have that report yet.
Because that is a major east-west highway.
Yes, sir.
And right now, the capacity on it's not sufficient, in my opinion. So, and even just adding the lanes just adds, and this development would add more capacity to an area and to a roadway that's already underbuilt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next, we have Vincent Mancino, 137 Harlow Point Road. Is Vincent still here?
Hi, how you doing? Couple things. One, based on this sports arena, the last meeting that we were at, you said that really in order to make a profit, we need to bring in people from either 30 miles away or 90 miles away. That was what you said. In order to make a profit, we need people to bring people in that don't normally live anywhere in this vicinity within the 20-mile radius. You need the people either 30 miles or 90 miles away. So that's my first concern. And as far as
If I can address that one real
Mhm.
quick. Regardless of the programming function of it,
Mhm.
the township is not worried about that facility turning a profit because we're not owning and operating it. It'll be viable because it has a successful pro forma model based off of it's been essentially commissioned by sports facility of how to do it. And it's one where you can come up with different, like a local service function for it or a more regional service function. Regardless, they both have their elements of, we'll call them profitability. But that's for the private element of this project to decide
well,
upon.
just looking at the map, I'm new here.
Yeah.
You know, take Christiana Mall.
Correct.
There's no sports arena anywhere near there, okay? And that's a big area. So now you want to put a sports arena in a very small, limited area with Limestone Road is a very busy road. I passed maybe 30 trucks earlier today passing me. I can't even imagine what the traffic would be with all the new housing. And based on the housing, someone brought it up, with the sewer system, I came from New Jersey, Hamilton Township, and they built so quickly that they had to put a 2-year sewer moratorium on the sewer system. So that's another concern. I mean, you're putting almost 1,000 units, probably more, in a short period of time in a sewer system where I don't know if the capacity is even there, but I want the board to think about that because it did happen in another township that I lived in. I had to wait 2 years to buy a house. So that's my other concern. Thank you.
Next, we have Tony Bamonte, 363 Carlisle Drive.
Chris, thanks a lot for bringing this developer to us. It sounds very exciting. I do have some, some questions. Are you going to just develop the land, the site? Or are you building those houses and retail?
I apologize. I didn't clarify myself. So we just do the horizontal work. We do the roads, the water, the sewer, that type of work. The vertical construction's done by what we call strategic partners. The home building will be done by a national home builder. The retail will be developed by a national retail developer.
Right. Both of those, and I hear it, sort of a caveat for me, like who would that be? What are they going to put in? What would be the lowest cost house or condo unit there? Because that talks to some of the things that other people.
That's a great question. I think that the lowest cost unit will start with a 3, probably in the high 3s. And I think that the product mix will go up all the way to the $700,000 or $800,000 or $900,000 range.
Right, right. Second piece is the retail piece. I am concerned about that because, you know, you're half a mile or so from Delaware where it's tax-free shopping. Who's going to stop in a strip center and buy some stuff with his tax? So I'm concerned about that. And I'm certainly concerned about the Wawa, the traffic, the light, the pollution, and so on and so forth. You've got a Wawa in Hockessin.
So with regards to the retail, we're not proposing a strip center type of retail. We're proposing more service-oriented retail. Maybe it's a restaurant. Maybe it's a coffee shop. Maybe it's a tailor or a dry cleaner, things of that nature. Not for sale type stuff. That retail model is not going to fit here.
Yeah, my concern is that retail developer gets it leased up, the business goes belly up in a year, and now you've got a vacant strip center or, you know, et cetera. The last piece is the stadium. I'm a little concerned about that. I recently took my grandkids to one of those type stadiums, and it's insanity inside out. It really is. So I am concerned about it. I wonder if that I think it was $6 million going towards the stadium. I think it was. It's to be used, at the former St. Anthony in the Hills.
To clarify, that's just a valuation of the 12 acres that's being deeded as a proffer to the township. But with that, if you can imagine, if you've ever been up to the Thornton kind of area, the United facility, that's also not built on kind of like a major artery. It's kind of tucked away a little bit.
Right.
The youth facility now, so I want to make sure that's in the vernacular here that we're talking about. Youth facility is in the meld of what that, or in the mold, excuse me, of what that would resemble. It's a smaller scale kind of, we'll call it like what it said in the slide, maybe more of like a 90, 100K type style facility, and it's for that type of programming there.
In lieu of that, do we have an option to do something else, or is it baked?
There's going to be contingencies based into it. So that's just the proposed recommendation based off of the fact that it produces more. I hate to get into kind of like what is the largest ROI that we can potentially achieve for the use of land and property in New Garden. As a staff member that's recommending to basically create the most amount of revenue as a function of funding service for the township, it's kind of like my obligation as a manager. I have to propose that as the option. Are there other things that can happen? Yes, absolutely. It could be another type of concept of a commercial anchor, a movie theater, whatever it ends up being. But there's only a select amount of menu of, we'll call them like feasible, attractive commercial anchors that exist in the kind of lexicon, if you will. So you have kind of a very limited thing of options to pick and choose from, but it has to fit the site and it has to fit our market. And that's kind of the two things that you have to do some configuring for.
So
right now, the facility fits based off of the fact that somebody who's really good at it told us it will fit. unless no one wants to build it. Then we'll have to change the plan.
So right now, you know, pickleball is very, very popular. I'm wondering if there could be something as small
That would
as
be
that.
inside that facility. They would run pickleball programming. You would have that as an option there. That's what I'm saying. Like, think of it as just like a box to do recreation stuff out of.
Okay.
And if you just kind of detach yourself of like a vision, it's more of whatever programming that that private group wants to run out of, that will be run out of that facility.
One last thing. So do you have to have retail? Do you have to have a Wawa type place? Is that baked into the?
The zoning calls for a mixed use concept, you have to have gross tract area designated for commercial. That was always part of this discussion within the UD. Because you build out for a certain amount of zoning for allowance for residential, the remnant has to be something else, which is commercial. So you're just talking about raw acreage. If we talk about up to 80% on a 200 acre plus property, that leaves a lot of room behind. That's like 40 plus acres of commercial. That's where you get that kind of like market saturation of commercial. We don't have that ability to support that because normal, we'll call them non-service oriented, but service oriented, traditional retail, it kind of exists within a demographic of like 1, 3, and 5 miles away. That's supportable, which is why you can't have a Wegmans here because that's 100,000 square feet plus of high stacked volume shelves for max grocery output. They would never look at us because we don't fit that metric of we have enough rooftops. Retail chases rooftops. That's kind of like an old adage there.
One last quick thing, and that is, let's assume we approve, the board approves this and we go forward. Will there also be an opportunity for the board to approve who those strategic partners are?
I think that'll be part of the process with the planning commission. We're going to provide elevations and we will be introducing the home builders to the planning commission. So I'm assuming that'll be vetted during that process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Next, we have Barry Crozier, 1 Briarwood Court.
Good evening. Some of this is going to be redundant, but it just adds maybe emphasis to what the concerns are. Could you put that picture up of the little diagram you have? Might be easier to explain what I'm trying to talk about here. And it may have been addressed with all the words going on, who knows? The section between Sunnydale Road and Sharp Road, there's a clear gap, what I'm calling a gap area. And I know it's not included in the White Clay property, but if that could be acquired, and maybe somebody's already thought about this, and round this thing out, because my God, you take your life in your hands, turn down Sunnydale now, and that's been addressed already. So that's just a thought, throwing it out there. You're brighter than I am. You probably figured that out already. Second thing was, many meetings ago, they had a proposal for circles on 41. I presume that this is not including any circles. I'm presuming, never should presume as an accountant, I guess. But the ones I saw, I think were more west of this. Is circles part of this?
It's not proposed as of yet. We will be sitting down with PennDOT shortly. The traffic engineer hasn't even come back with recommendations yet. I would envision at a minimum signalized intersections. That's what I would envision. Not sure about circles,
Okay.
roundabouts.
The last thing, again, with the interest of time, the sports venue, the way you have it situated, those of us who know St. Anthony's in the Hills, now New Garden Hills, I guess it's called, there was a mini coliseum there. You've probably seen it. You probably walked the property.
Yes, sir.
And, it's not perfect. It's not huge. There used to be 2 Olympic pools there. I don't know if they still are or not. My father-in-law painted the base of those for Father Roberto back in the day. Some of the folks here probably remember him. But anyway, the idea is there any way, if it would work, to deflect the amusement part into St. Anthony's in the Hills? That shoves it down the road a little bit, but it might also help alleviate some of the traffic issues. One last thing on that, anybody who's driven downstate in Delaware and Sussex County and going by Delaware turf, particularly in the summer, and come to a complete standstill in Sussex County, going by, I know it's not going to be thousands of cars, but it could be massive, the traffic situation in a sports venue down there. And just offering that up for you.
So with regards to the traffic interface or the connectivity to New Garden Park, I would say that we've had conversations about it. It's so preliminary right now. I don't think because of the grade, you could physically move the proposed sports complex down there. And one of the reasons I think we located the sports complex where we did is for visibility on 41, for marketing standpoints. Everything's in play. So we've got ongoing conversations. I would say that we speak with staff weekly about all of these concepts, ideas. Neil and his team have just vetted all of this and laid all this out. This will be a process. So we're open to any and all suggestions is what
And obviously also that, I mean, I know next week they're going to talk about the what is it, the project on Limestone Road, the possible development of that corner there by where the mulch company is and all that. What's the name of that road? Not Sunnydale, Southwood. Yeah, thank you.
Southwood Road.
Yeah, that's probably going to be talked about next week. So that would jam that down there. So it's all in the same general area, of course. So just thoughts.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And just to also provide, we've already tasked the Parks and Rec Board, and we have Mike Buck as well, our Director of Parks and Open Space. The goal is to give them at least another month to prepare to deliver the kind of an updated, revised New Garden Hills Park Plan. There's been kind of a freezing of that project for a considerable amount of time, mostly because it was one where the original kind of reintroduction of that with the engineered kind of master plan with costs associated it was very high. And it was also one where public access was a huge issue. And this is one where it kind of made sense to marry it up to potential White Clay Point development because you can get multiple roadways that we didn't have control over, like the Terra Holdings property piece. There was no direct gateway access off of Reynolds to get to that actual rear area where the kind of quote unquote more impervious spaces are, where the pool area and the parking lot, as well as it was always one where we have one entryway off of Route 7 that was identified as the worst of all the three potential entryways down into the park. And so we needed to figure out how to get throughput through the Route 41 element with signage to gate, basically like a gateway function down into the park. And that was also seen as like an activation piece for it. So there will be kind of circulation kind of discussions about getting through the park, kind of like vehicle pedestrian shared use path functionality, but save those for a future date because we are planning to bring that forward here soon.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we have a Melissa Berrier, and then after Melissa, we have Peter Mrzinski, and then Mr. D'Angelo, I cut you off, so after Peter Mrzinski, you can speak again if you'd like. Thank you, Melissa.
Hi, my biggest concern is the possibility of more crime in the area. Obviously, you're bringing a lot more people in, so you're talking, significant amount of crime. So my concern is, are we going to be getting more police coverage? Are we going to be getting more first responder coverage? Because you've got people that are going to, you need first responders and extra of that. And my other concern is, I live I back up to Sunnydale and I have to access Reynolds to get to my house. So this definitely concerns me and I'm not happy with it at all. But I don't know that there's any way to stop it, obviously, at this point. But the other concern I had was when he was talking about that our lake is a dammed lake. I had kind of forgotten that. And my concern is that we don't see something catastrophic happen to that because of all of the extra runoff water and it flooding the entire neighborhood. So that was my concerns.
I can at least address the policing function. I have engaged Chief Greenwald from the Southern Chester County Regional Police. They're basically going to show kind of what a model is in terms of just maintaining the community-oriented policing function model and what kind of additive cost that would be part of I'll call it like the impact cost for it. But absolutely, we would ensure that there would be kind of in alignment with the metrics they propose to have sufficient policing, we would keep that intact. So that it's going to be figured out. And for in terms of the overall thing, it's not going to increase. The whole point of this development is to raise the bar for revenues into the township. Because right now we're kind of right at that limit. We can't really add things to the township in terms of service cost for anything today without having to look at our tax rate. So we don't have future spec coming in revenues. This actually helps us not have to raise taxes because it creates a buffer above what we need to fund services. So that's why it's kind of seen as a net positive from just an overall revenue standpoint. But we want to make sure we're not just saying, revenue. It's a kind of a holistic amount of outcomes, but it does help that. And then of course, to make sure that everyone understands, the regional is not holistically funded only by New Garden. We do have a regional partner with West Grove. And so any cost that's kind of additive, we share a percentage portion of that, not the whole cost. So essentially West Grove is paying for our additive developments, if you could think of it like that. Yes, there will have to be. You will have a certain point, but it would be one where it's based off of total amounted additive population. If you're familiar with like policing metrics, it's like a per population base, whether or not it's 800 per officers per, excuse me, one officer per 800, 1,000. I don't know what that is. That's why I want to wait for Chief Greenwald to explain what that means. But we will have that information when it's prepared. Yep.
Hi, Peter Mrozinski, 309 Hyde Park Road. Just a couple quick things. No one said anything yet about the intersection of Route 41 and Limestone. Are you aware of the intersection of Route 41 and Limestone Road?
I would say that before I even
It's out
comment
of-
on it, I've
it's-
got it. Well, I've
yeah.
got us. Yeah.
No, I'm not, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm not expecting you to address it. I just want to raise the issue. I've talked about this issue here before because I have been literally almost killed twice at that intersection. And this is a huge amount of development. And if that intersection cannot handle it, and you all have to agree with me on that.
Yeah.
So I don't see why this is not a top priority in any development of that area.
Just to clarify too, just real quick, there is a constraint for requiring off-site improvements, and the interchange qualifies as an off-site improvement. You're 100% correct. The interchange is deficient, and the township's plan is at least to commission more support via the kind of the channels that we have to go through, because that is 100% a PennDOT issue, because even its current level of service is.
I understand that, but so you're saying it's a separate issue that you are looking at?
Yes.
But I don't think they can be developed separately, is the point. You can't go ahead with this without an answer to that intersection. I'm very interested in the sewer, but I'm not going to go there yet. Maybe we can. The other thing is, and I don't mean to be whatever the word is, but even though you're saying that the options are open on the site where you're looking at the sports complex, I get a feeling today you're pushing that through. And that bothers me because, again, I was at a meeting earlier this year where you held a special session to rezone, make sure there is rezoning for a sports complex. I stood here and I asked you, what is that? Because there's nothing. And a number of people stood up and said they disagreed with that sports complex. And at that time, you said, we have no plans. We're doing it only because we are rezoning. And people tell us we should have this in our zoning so that if someone wants to put a sports complex in, we can control it. You've gone from this is only in there as a placeholder to this is the reason we're doing this. The first thing you said, you both said the sports complex was a big driver for this whole project. My concern is there were a number of people who are not here tonight. I know the people at Hartfeld were very opposed, but yet it seems like you've just gone and you're pushing forward on it. Have you gone back and gone to these people and said, what do you think of this? Have you made any reach out to the community asking, what do you think of this? There was a lot of pushback, but it feels like it's a done deal now. And I know you said there's options, but everything is sports complex.
Correct. And just like I said, that was the primary driver to do the feasibility to get the site market. I just want to make sure that that's clarified. But yes, it's absolutely a contingency based off of
But you said
private interest.
You just admitted it was the main driver.
For the township to do exploration, to try to seek solutions for people coming to the site, of which a marketable component can be.
You know where my position is.
Okay.
We've been deceived, I guess, is the way I see it.
Okay.
It's the way I see it. Because you said one thing earlier this year, without going back to the community, you've now changed your focus. And that's the point I wanted to make.
Mr. D'Angelo, did you want to finish your questions?
Like to address one issue, and unfortunately, I have a hearing issue, so I didn't hear everything that was just said. When you and I spoke about 6 months ago, you told me that the Reynolds Road issue was being addressed with this development. It wasn't an issue. Nothing in there went to the Reynolds Road issue. Absolutely nothing. But the point I want to get to right now is what you said a few minutes ago. I totally 100% disagree with that. You are not an investment firm. You are not here for the highest return on investment. To my mind, the board, the staff are here to help maintain the lifestyle that we all moved here for. I've lived here 50 years. You're not here to give a return on investment. Doing that is what got us all stuck with the sewer company we have now because of what you did when you sold it to the sewer company. So please don't look at us as your revenue stream to invest to get a return on investment. We are here to enjoy our lifestyle. We worked, or we either work now or did work, and I'm totally against the sports complex. I will tell you that. I'll do whatever I have to do to fight against it. But please, if your whole focus is a return on investment, I don't think that's what the community wants you here for. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to make public comment? I don't have any more yellow slips, so as far as I know, there's nobody else that would like to speak. Thanks. Can you state your name and address too?
Derek Smith, 336 Egypt Run Road. So there was a couple questions I want to follow back up on with you as far as the sewer. In your presentation, you mentioned 12 million budgeted right now, but you also mentioned that that will cover 50% roughly.
So the options that Aqua's provided to us is approximately $20 million. We're going to try to value engineer that. That's what we're in the process of doing now. We don't think it's going to be $20 million.
Okay. So you're forecasting it would be more like 12 and you're going to cover 100% of that.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
One was on, I believe it's on page 82 of your document there, as far as the youth sports center, where it mentions feasibility for public funding. Could you elaborate on that? Well, it was 82 on the full document, so I'm not sure what page it is on here.
Correct. Yeah, we looked into it and it just ended up being non-feasible. So the goal was to do due diligence to figure out what it meant, and based off of just speculation of the cost, which is up there, and based off of the township's underwriting capacity, based off of its existing tax rate, what we can get to pay off anything, it was just we would never be able to scale a revenue amount to pay off the actual bond on a consistent basis. So that's why it was seen as not recommended and not feasible.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I may have to read it
before in
again.
the meeting, I wanted to make sure that this wasn't one where we were throwing everything, gaining away on something like that. It's going to depend upon private interests and possibly even, we'll call it just contingencies of alternative options on there as well. It's so undefined at this point, but the good news is the township at least has control of that aspect of the property. It might be one where there's an alternative, and I want to make sure that it's understood that that was the reason to get this to the point here to talk about, but it's not a done deal.
Okay, and that kind of segues into my next question related to the sporting facility, which would be, if that fails, what would you envision to take its place other than an empty 55,000 square foot structure?
No, that's up to the proposal for board inputs on this process, what's feasible that can be built. It just depends.
Okay.
I don't have an answer really for that,
No,
but it's a good
that's fine. I
question.
just as long as you guys are thinking about that,
Yep.
because that's what I envision right away with it, is that
Right.
there's plenty of options in Wilmington, Elkton now.
Yeah.
Why are we going to come here with a sports complex?
Well, the reason, just to kind of make sure that's understood, the reason that SFA looked at that, they already measured against those projects. So the reason they recommended an indoor, because there is no indoor facility other than United and I think Spooky Nook, which is out west of Lancaster. So those are kind of the competitors, if you will.
Yeah, there's one in Wilmington too, the Chase or the Sixers building.
Correct, but it's not like for youth athletic programming. It's not, that's for a professional team.
Yeah, Titus is in there too, though.
Yeah.
They have youth
Correct.
programs as well.
And that was actually in the model as well, but it's down in Wilmington outside of our kind of regional function here. That's at least what the Sports Facilities Advisory Group said.
Okay, so then I have like two more little points here. The one being a little more towards your traffic light indication on 41. If anyone's been here long enough, I know at least you have, Steve, to remember when PennDOT put a red light at Sunnydale. It lasted maybe a month, if that. Back traffic up into Delaware, back traffic up all the way into like Avondale State Police Barracks. It was a nightmare. So I'm interested to see that traffic study. And then can't remember the gentleman's name who mentions Limestone Road frequently. I think he hit the nail on the head that this project is a lot further along than we're being led to believe. And and I know that you guys are hearing us, but I don't know that you're listening to us. So I just wanted to put that out there. That, you know, even though we're being told one thing, it seems, I agree that we tend to be deceived. And personally, I don't appreciate it. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, it's further along because they're using the old plans, right? Is that,
Settlement agreement.
Thank you.
Expedites some of the process, yes.
that has been approved, that was approved how long ago?
2007.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments?
Name? Sorry, Clara, Yellow Harlow Point.
Also, just make sure to get your yellow slip up here. Thank you.
Stonewall, is that correct? And I'm sorry if I missed it. Yeah, I'm Stonewall. I'm sorry if I missed it. Who is paying you and how much are your services?
Who's paying us? We're purchasing this property. We're the developer.
Okay, so it's not costing us
No.
anything?
No.
No. Okay, great. Second is, what will the cost to existing property owners be for this whole project?
I would defer to Chris. I don't think there is
I
any.
understand what you're talking, what do you mean? Well, I'm asking basically if our taxes as existing property owners, obviously, the new property owners, they'll pay their taxes, et cetera. But will this whole project cost everybody here? Well, this is a private developer who's privately purchasing privately held property to then develop it and probably sell to or reach an agreement with builders who are private companies. So no cost to you. So I'm not saying you're not going to be terrified by it, but there's no dollar cost to you because it's all private money. Right, and I understand all of our concerns with traffic and sewers and that, I get that. Yeah. And obviously, we're voicing that concern. I'm not going to repeat it because it's already been said. But at the end of the day, I'd like to understand how it's going to impact our pockets. Well, that's the whole hearing you say is, guys, don't worry about that. Worry about the other stuff that you're bringing up. But as far as our taxes, our cost of living in New Garden Township, this does not affect that. Is Well, that correct? That's correct. Every private development has some sort of impact on you that I'm not really able to anticipate right now. But in terms of a tax cost, think about it. It's private money building this. understand.
All right,
I get
so
that.
that now, does that mean there will be additional police costs down the road? Yes, certainly, just because more people are going to be here, but not the actual construction, no.
All right, so you're basically saying the impact to us would be if we needed to add more police, which we probably do.
Yeah, just want to, there will
one.
be an economic impact study performed. That's pretty basic for all land development projects. There's also an environmental transportation, about I can't list them all off the top of my head. Those are part of the land development review process. So we will take that information and go, this is what the expectation of additive cost of development. Any development for anything has a cost of whatever it means to support it. This would be no different. And then you weigh that up against what that means for the incoming revenues, because all of the revenue then gets kind of eaten into a little bit for saying you have to have expenditure increases. What I believe was kind of discussed earlier from the same similar conversation is that the way that we are set up as a more regional and very lean organization, we can basically not have to have a direct linear cost increase of it. So what I would say, this is forecast to be an exponential increase in taxes. My assessment right now would be no.
So the answer to that is hopefully not, but we don't know yet.
If that satisfies you, then yes.
I don't know, nothing satisfies me today,
Okay.
but anyway, but I just want to make sure that it's TBD, the way I'm understanding it now. Is that
So in any development, there's always going to be a lagging demand for more services. Always. Even when your community was built, okay? There is always going to be a need for more police with more people, more fire, more ambulance. And unfortunately, the world we're in today, when you look at EMS services, paramedics, ambulances, fire, those pieces of equipment used to be $40,000, $50,000 you could buy an ambulance. They're $350,000 now. A fire truck is $1.2 million. There was a picture on the wall here that the township helped Avondale buy a fire truck some 20 years ago. It was $200,000. So that's $1 million increase in less than 20 years for one piece of equipment. So there's always going to be more. The theory is more people would bring more revenue. Earned income tax used to be our largest generator of income. As the interest rate falls, it will take first place again. Property taxes, as long as the people that come here have jobs and earned income, the theory should work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to kind
That-
of
that
confirm,
there-
and just, if we did nothing today, the cost of fire will go up.
Correct.
If anything, it's the lack of having consistency of EMS billing revenues as a function of revenue that supports the fire company. That's shifting the burden towards municipalities. Volunteerism is essentially dead at the fire company level. So you have to staff it with professionals who are paid salary staff employees. That increases the cost. You know, you can talk about kind of what the federal government is or is not doing, but a Medicaid essentially reduction is loss of Medicaid revenue billing. That's an unfunded mandate from the federal government towards localities.
But as far as the numbers that you've put together so
Yeah.
far, considering the.
It would exceed our existing expenditure needs. Yeah.
So
Or a major.
I don't want to make it like hyperbolic. It will significantly exceed our existing expenditure requirements. Let's just put it there.
the impact study that was done with the initial plan was, and I'm going to say this, having been in office for 20 years now, that was the only plan that was not 100% residential. With the offset of commercial, that was the only plan that I've seen that the impact study was net positive, period. So the mixed use concept gives us a better chance, but we have no idea. It's $1 million to blacktop a mile of roads now. That was a $200,000 ticket item 10 years ago.
Okay, well, I appreciate.
I just wanted to follow up with what Steve was saying too, because it speaks to the things that Chris has been showing us when he came in and did all these demographic studies. You know, we have that kind of double dip. So everyone in the township is either very young or very old. So we have that gap of people who aren't paying into the earned income tax. So if the earned income tax shrinks, then that of course causes the property taxes to have to go up, which as seniors, you know, you have fixed income, so that's not great for you. So again, we're trying to fill in that missing middle, not only in terms of, you know, cost, but also in terms of people, you know, people in their 30s, 40s need to be able to live here and everything. And so again, that speaks to, you know, if everyone are seniors and living in $800,000 houses, that doesn't really help us with earned income or having a healthy kind of distribution curve. So that's what we're aiming to do with this.
Thank you.
Richard?
Thank you.
Yeah, Richard Gaw, Chester County Press. I have several questions, but in the interest of time, I'll ask only one. There is the NVF building, as I'm sure many of you know, proposed site in the middle of the borough has been undergoing soil remediation efforts probably for the last 15 to 20 years. I'm curious to know if soil remediation studies, cleaning up the environment will be a part of this project if it moves forward.
I would probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, based on previous studies with stormwater, and I forget what year it was. I want to say 05, 06. The site above the Somerset Lake, undeveloped, is worse for the stormwater, the watershed, because it's the headwaters. The post-development would actually improve that significantly, which would reduce sediment, control the volume. Right now, it's just running uncontrolled. There are places, not only on this site, but other sites that drain the headwaters of that lake that you could hide a full-size pickup truck in a gully.
Well, I'm not really talking so much about water and storm drainage. I'm talking about poisons.
Poisons.
Yeah. Are there poison materials in the land in this area as of right now? Does anyone in the township know this information?
So there, not that I'm aware of, there are, I'm sure they're not going to spend money without doing an environmental impact. Do you want to elaborate on that?
The only info I really have that would help you is there were previous Act 2 projects on the site, which is soil remediation or other environmental things that DEP has identified, that at the time the property owner got permitting from DEP to clean up parts of the soil. And to my knowledge, the ones that have been identified in the past were completed. I am not aware of any current issues of contaminated soil on the site, but the Stonewall is doing other studies that would address whether there are reasons that stuff like that needs to be done.
And will the results of all of these studies be made aware to the township residents and those who are potentially going to be living in this area? Okay. Could you repeat that for everyone?
We are happy to share the phase 1 environment.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you state your name and address, please?
What's your name?
Jeff Ketchum, 506 Port Royal Court.
You wanted this slide? You said page 4?
Next. Gosh.
You just can flash it to me. I can see it from here. Okay, gotcha. The overall site concept. You want this one, the color version, the top?
That's
Okay.
good. We in Somerset Lake have enjoyed basically no traffic through there in my 8 years there. It's a wonderful place. And I'm sure you guys at Stonewall have a lot of experience with adjacent properties giving you a hard time. I don't want access from your new stuff into my place. So on coming down to Buttonwood, this intersection here is we walked there a lot, walking bike. How can we
access here, and they're all gonna come down here. Intersection, it all points south.
Do you think that the traffic model would be that the people leaving the single family houses would go through your 25-mile-an-hour neighborhood as opposed to going up to 4 lanes?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Exactly right. And it would be a bonanza for the police department. They could fund all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But from your experience, how do you deal with people like us who say, keep your traffic out of our area?
We sit and we talk to you and we listen to you, and then we try to pivot and work around it. So that's what we're going to do as part of this process.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That concludes the open comment section on the White Clay Point development. We have a number of other agenda items we're going to go through now. I guess if people don't want to stay for the meeting, if you want to leave now, and then we'll take a little pause. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Hey, we only met a couple of years ago in your office. That was it. Yeah.
You look familiar.
Yeah, I was doing.
Okay.
God, feel free to interrupt. Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Always facilities, Rico, 50 miles, huge soccer fields, fields, pounding down, huge. They've got indoor soccer, they've got a big development in there. There's a play promise, football, every other thing. You've got Conshohocken, gigantic fields there.
I just want to make an announcement. It looks like most of the people have thinned out for the prior agenda session, so we want to reconvene and get going again. So filibuster your own meeting.
Thanks, everybody, for sticking around. This should be pretty quick. Next item is the New Garden Park air quality monitor. Chris, do you want to take that?
Yes, thank you. I don't have to reintroduce myself, but so just to bring everybody up to speed on the air quality update, this is more or less a kind of an update about DEP's commitment to establish a permanent air quality monitor location in New Garden Park. So over the course of obviously the last few years, if you will, frustratingly so, but at least in terms of the last few months, the goal was to say with DEP's committable levels of what they can do to kind of invest into more monitoring stations in the township. We had a active renewal of a lease agreement pending some sort of renewal approval for the airport monitor. We essentially held DEP's feet to the fire that say, we're not going to approve that unless you give us another air quality station. They acquiesce, and now we have a new air quality station potential leverage here. So what this would be a second location. They're going to call that now the New Garden Airport site, and this is the proposed, they're calling it the Landenberg site. And the goal is because we've always had, over the course of the last few years, these grant-funded studies. some of it at cost to the township. Currently, right now, the existing study is ongoing with, I think, the AMI-based study and the Westchester University study. Once those studies are complete, monitoring kind of goes away in this area. So there's no long-term solution, and that's why it was identified as a priority. So that kind of explains what we're talking about here, which was one where the goal was to have some sort of commission monitor that's not up by town hall, kind of down further towards the property line, having to be on a public site, so New Garden Park, as close as possible to the Landenberg Hunt community, who's kind of obviously across the way from the composting facilities that are directly adjacent to that property. So with that, this is what they're committing to do. And the good part about it is all of this is accessible public data that we would have live on the site. So you can go on the site any day and see that right now the airport site, which has an H2S kind of thing, it's not even measuring for H2S up at the airport, as it turns out. That's why it's just turning out zeros. Because I was very curious, because there was the recency of the Modern Mushroom site with the distribution of spent mushroom substrate not yielding any sort of result on the monitor. And of course, it's upwind from it, it's uphill and stuff, so it might not necessarily get a good sample, but they're gonna also provide additive H2S sampling at that site as well. Their big thing and their reason they like the airport site, it's more of like a regional ozone measurement function for this area in connection with like the Philadelphia market. That's what's very valuable to them. And we use that as leverage to get what we wanted as well. So with that, it's also going to add fine particulate sampling and as well as just serve as like a weathering kind of station function. And the goal is to have it operational by the end of this Q3 area, by the end of the fall at the maximum. And the hope is if there's some sort of treatment function for future facility improvements to dampen H2S emissions on the property, this would show a reduction over time. You could just see it drop. That's the theory behind it, but at least we can hold them accountable because we have something there every single day. So I'd say this can see kind of a successful outcome. So DEP officials were out here earlier in the month. We kind of toured the area. So the one kind of acquiescence is we don't want to have this at cost to the township. I'm always stressing the fact that we can't afford anything. So hopefully that helps us out. And with that, the kind of give would be that they would have to provide infrastructure connections to the energy pole here to provide it kind of a daisy chain down into the park. So it's more of an aesthetic impact of anything else. So if residents can kind of understand, you'd be walking down the trail there, the pedestrian path, and you would just see one connected pole to kind of this area where they can't kind of put it in here because it's kind of like a marshy kind of confluence area. And then it has to kind of traverse over the course of the path where they put another pole. And then from there, you would have to it would descend down that one line, which just directly connect to like a box kind of function that's there next to the site to power the site. There it is right there. That's what it would look like. They did provide an alternative. The one thing is you can't bury this. They don't have the funding to do that, and we definitely don't as well. And that's an insignificant increase to the cost. But that's one where if we want to keep our park intact, we like the aesthetic integrity of it, that would be where we would have to give on that part of the township. And that's one where that's a decision in terms of just what is the greater good. We have to make to get this at no cost, this is what it has to look like. With that, I did receive with some discussions with AMI about an update on their study. It came through a very kind of I'll call it well-composed statement, if you want to call it that. But essentially, they are looking at doing a PDA-funded improvement to dampen H2S emissions on specifically right now, I would imagine it'd be those with the larger lagoons on their properties. They would have some sort of I don't know what it's called. It's kind of like a nano bubbler type of thing, essentially like a pool Roomba, if you will, to kind of disturbs all the anaerobic processes down at the bottom of the lagoons to keep that process from turning out hydrogen sulfide emissions. And then also to kind of tarp it as well. So it's like a dual hatted type thing. That is one where PDA is figuring out how they're going to try to fund these type solutions. So I'll kind of believe it when I see it, but it's one where that's where they're heading in that direction. When, where, why, that's all decided upon by the mushroom industry and their just funding apparatus through the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. But more to follow, and we will continue to kind of lobby AMI to come in and provide a public update when I guess more is known at that time. So the goal is essentially to have them kind of provide their emissions reduction standards and for us to keep them accountable to make sure that's not happening. That's kind of the dual-ended procedure there to kind of come to a good outcome. Because from what I can understand, don't hold your breath for regulation changes at the state level for acre. And that's it. So I would just kind of provide this as an actual agenda item for decision-making of, you know, if this is one where you want to change the layout, you want to ban different things, let me know. Because this is now an independent lease agreement potential. It's in the packet for what we would approve to commission this project, if that makes sense.
And Chris, can you repeat it? Where the star is? Is that the low point?
Where it would be the station itself. If you can think about it, it's about the size of a parking spot. It looks like a Connex box, if you will, but kind of smaller, more of a shoebox kind of thing. But
And it's a low point on the new
yeah,
garden
if
property.
people remember what it looked like up here at Town Hall facility, it's that exact same thing. There's a current one at the airport site that's kind of a permanent site there. It just looks like that box on the site.
But this should be more accurate because it's lower.
It's at the lowest point. It's roughly 60 feet lower in elevation. It's at the lowest point because this is still, you would have, if you wanted to put it right on the line, you would have to grade it out in that area because it would just be tipping on its side, and that would be at cost to the township. As well as we didn't want to put it in the parking spot because we wanted to keep all the spots kind of open for patronage to the park for events because we have the soccer league, the youth soccer league functions out of that as well. So it's a give in some regards, but it's to get the kind of what the goal was, which is long-term monitoring at no cost.
Chris, thank you for taking the lead on this. I am very pleased with the location and would agree that it's needed there for the communities and all of us surrounding.
So we need to vote on the location and then authorize Chris to sign the lease agreement pending Winnie's final review.
The lease agreement's kind of a boilerplate agreement, kind of mirroring the existing airport site one. That's why Winnie's review of it before we kind of make sure, but it's be authorizing us to kind of facilitate that. And then this site would be kind of built into the terms on that lease agreement as well. So we would go through that function, but that's kind of what tonight is about is, does this site make sense? And I asked, there's not a lot of other alternatives. But it's also one where there's not a lot of obstructions here. It's kind of a clear path into it. If you move it to the left, massive tree line kind of right there, and you move it to the right, you're kind of more obstructions and tree lines. And so they're saying was you want as much of a kind of a clear line of sight from one all the way through the other to get clean reads on it. So it's kind of has to be this saddle, if you will, of just non-obstructiveness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so far as power and infrastructure, everything's pretty much all right there, correct?
Yeah, it reads off of this, so it would be a function of it's powered, the reliable Pico power that we get, but it's one where the maintenance of the facilities are required by DEP to make sure it's operational.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't own responsibility for maintaining this because I don't know how to run this thing other than if it's like a light switch.
Really quick before we vote on this, I just wanted to circle back to the AMI study that they offered to meet with anyone in the community who might have questions, right? That was mentioned previously, correct? Okay.
And we're going to continue to hold them. The one thing is we can't authoritatively say, come here at this time at this place.
Oh, right, right.
I imagine when these solutions are better kind of commissioned as like they have like a valid, that's why I think they're kind of being kind of spongy with the language here. I think it's one where they establish a pipeline of funding with the kind of fully kind of tested solution. Then we would ask them to come in, and they've agreed to do that to provide a public update about what that means.
Yeah, and I've previously stated, and I have no problem saying it right here, we've consistently said there's not, this isn't within our jurisdiction, right? And so for us to be standing here giving that message, I think, due to conflicts of schedule, the AMI representative would have been here, but we had trouble scheduling it. So just to be clear, if there's any questions that need follow-up, you guys are welcome. Anyone is welcome to meet with them directly and have any questions answered. Do you want me to make a motion on?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the location of the monitoring station.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we've got the third quarter.
The second motion on that one too for the actual terms for the lease agreement.
Oh, the lease agreement. So provided the solicitor is okay, I will make a motion to authorize the manager to execute the lease on behalf of New Garden Township.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That it?
For that, yes.
Next, we've got the third quarter appropriation for the Avondale Fire Company and Southern Chester County EMS. The amount for combined is $297,811.75. Is there a motion to approve such appropriations?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we've got the appropriations for nonprofit organization for fiscal year 2025 and the total amount of $128,068.56. Do you want to comment on that, Chris?
These were established during the budget process for last year in terms of funding, or at least providing contributions to nonprofits that provide very localized services within the township. These are the four that were kind of a resultant of that. And then, of course, the by referendum commitment of the 0.1 mil to the library that was voted upon in 2017. That is the 0.1 mil as of our additive total assessable base value of property. So that's what that means.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve such appropriations?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we've got the Act 209. We need to approve the resolution 2025-015, accepting the capital improvement plan. Any comment there, Chris? Do you want to summarize the earlier?
If you want to summarize the
Meeting.
resolution, in terms of the process, it was just explained during the actual public hearing, but it's been explained in board meetings previously that this is kind of the final mile before final adoption for the ordinance, which is planned for next month. As a culmination of 18 months of planning and reviews for transportation, kind of master plan, if you will, the LUR, the RSA, I'm seeking all these acronyms, so apologize if people haven't kind of gotten the kind of information of what they mean. The Transportation Capital Improvement Plan was one of those things that had to go through like a hearing-based function for the TIFAC group to approve or recommend for approval by resolution by the board tonight. So that's what tonight's resolution really means. I don't know if I stole your thunder, Wendy.
Okay, sure.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 2025-015?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-015.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we've got Thompson escrow release number 4 in the amount of $231,077.09. Is there a motion to approve the reduction of the secured funds in such amount?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we've got the Copper Leaf Ridge escrow release number 4 in the amount of $279,371.74. Is there a motion to approve such release?
I'll make the motion for Copper Leaf subdivision for escrow release.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then last item before manager's report is the 147 Maple Lane fee waiver request. Chris, any commentary there?
Yes, and Tom Schreier for representing the property owners here as well. Essentially, it's one where, we have the Act 209 process in place with the interim fee existing today that was adopted by resolution in April of last year or May or early on in the summer last year. I can't remember when that went through. But also we have in terms of our existing, is it in the saldo? For the community recreation fee in lieu of, which is more of a reflection of that is some insane math in our saldo. And we are addressing this in the saldo update, but it's one where you can see it in the proofed out here for a very minor plan for essentially like a one house development. We're talking about $90,000 worth of fees for those two functions. And of course, I think the spirit for the recreation fee was about major subdevelopments who don't have a planned community space would provide funding to the township so we could build out community recreation spaces otherwise in the township. So this is also kind of a healthy discussion about, is there an establishable threshold for meeting the criteria for having to pay the fee versus not based off of the gravity of the development you're proposing there. So that's one element, but this is more of a proposal to waive the fee in light of just what the project entails. And Tom, if you've had any other components there, but it seems pretty straightforward.
I mean, the recreational fees alone, I think you spoke well to it. I mean, ultimately, we are creating 3 lots. 2 of the existing homes we're just placing on fee simple lots. There is only truly one increase in one dwelling unit for the subdivision. In regards to the traffic impact fee, I think it's important to note that the person that will reside within the proposed home actually already lives on the property. So there's actually no increase to traffic, as well as the portion of Maple Lane in front of the development is actually a private road. And the responsibilities of the township end much closer to Newark Road itself.
Also, I think when he put it out there for the ordinance for the Act 209, there are going to be listed exceptions for it if it's like a Habitat for Humanity type project, if it's for, so there's kind of elements of like eligibility to be exempt from it or seeking waivers from it as well. So that's kind of helps. And the 90 number, I think 88 of that is the community recreation fee in lieu of. So that's a hefty amount for doing a 1-lot subdevelopment.
No, we've talked about this before. It's crazy. I'll make a motion to approve the waiver.
Waiver?
With an S.
Waivers.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks for sticking around till the end.
Thank
Well, I
you.
was going to come anyways. It's enlightening to see what's happening.
Always a hoot.
There is no plan manager report for tonight. I didn't know if people wanted to have an update on just PennDOT paving stuff, but the audience left the room, so I guess not. But that's just kind of ongoing, but yeah, I don't have any plan report.
Paving update.
What's that?
You would like a paving update? Do we have any updates on Newark and Baltimore?
So right now, the transportation engineer, Bowman, who's also our transportation engineer, is the contracted engineer for the Newark Baltimore Pike intersection. They have now nearly completed stormwater design that does a significant amount of rerouting improvements around Tough Kenneman. So that's seen as a net win. And that's also one where the ability for them to come in, I think, is either September or October to kind of basically discuss that entire output of all of the transportation enhancements, the stormwater enhancements, and when timelines, but it's still planned to be permitting for FY26 and construction start date in FY27. So they're still abiding by that schedule. But as of FY27, you will see a shovel in the ground improving the Baltimore Pike intersection as what's been told to us by PennDOT.
Great.
And it's like a $20 million project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Any
Your motion to adjourn or any other questions?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Too late.
So would anyone like to join in a class action lawsuit with Kennett Township? They're floating that against Pico.
Against Pico.
Yeah.
For
the constant outages.
For what?
For the constant outages.
constant outages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their inability to.
Man, sign me up.
I know if that's something you were monitoring, Chris, with the other township managers, it would at least it's my understanding that their goal was to draw.
I've heard they've been raising a big amount of issues with Pico. I didn't know it was going to go into a class action lawsuit. It would have to be discussed and planned because I can't imagine that's free.
Yeah.
No.
And whether or not it would be
just
successful
out
is an
there,
argument
yeah.
too as well.
Response is generally the weather.
Yeah.
Yes.
From my understanding too, in terms of governmental kind of facilities or quasi-governmental agencies like Pico is, they're not subject to issues based off of act of God.
Right.
That pretty much falls in line with that. We have that out as well. And it's going to be a tough, I'm not a legal expert, but that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It was just something I had seen that Kennett's doing. Yeah.
I'll reach out and get more information if that helps.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
To Kenneth, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Richard wrote an article about it last week. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking with the Richard Leff from Kennett Township and Bob Norris from the borough about issues. So they were actually, and sorry to belabor the issue, but Kennett Township had apparently had some Pico people come out in 2018 or 19, they said, and kind of giving them an update. So they're looking to possibly do that again. So it
Hmm.
might be something we want to join in and
Mhm.
see what they're doing. So
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? That's it.
Good job.